Hi.
Hi.
So we get to just chat.
We just get to chat.
Yeah. So they said just come up on stage and talk. So.
And we haven't really planned it. We did have a little planning.
A little bit of it.
But not really.
Not much.
Yeah.
But how do you want to get started?
Well, any questions from the audience?
No, I think
we have a question.
Well, we're up here to talk about brands and customer journeys and experiences. And I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I am a huge fan of Salt and Straw.
I'm a huge fan of Dutch Brothers. Back at you.
And can I see a raise of hands of how many people have waited in that? Do you think my lines are long? I got nothing on her.
Oh, how many people have waited at Dutch Brothers?
Yeah,
I
right?
have for sure.
Yeah.
Woo.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how do you manage that? Like, how do you think about your brand, and like, how do you justify a 45-minute line for a double scoop of ice cream?
It's not 45 minutes.
Yeah. How do you think about that?
The days of 45-minute lines, if we could only have those back. I mean, coming through this pandemic has been something else. I think I was always so appreciative of every single person who came to Salt and Straw, but now even more than ever. And I get to work with this woman who produces movies for The Rock, and she said one day, I get up every morning and I work so hard to make sure that I earn every single butt that's in that seat watching a movie. And we really connected over that, because I feel the same way. Like me, my team, we wake up every single morning thinking, first and foremost, like, how can we be of service to our team? How can we make this experience that they're having, that they're bringing their life's energy to work for us and with us? Like, how can we make that worth their while? And then how can we make that time that someone stands in line or comes to see us worth their life's energy? And we always say, like, you never know why someone has come to stand in front of you. And we use the word a moment of full face attention. It's one of our favorite sayings. Like, if we can offer someone a moment of full face attention, oftentimes that's even more important than the ice cream that they're getting. And so how we talk to our team and figure out, how one meets one in terms of, that connection that you're going to have with somebody. And we really appreciate the lines, but I think what I appreciate even more are stories about, like, people have gotten job offers in our line. There's been marriage proposals. It's not very infrequent when people get to the front, they're like, I just met this guy behind me and I'm gonna buy him a scoop because he's in from out of town, he's having a broad day, he's celebrating, she's, here with her mom, who she hasn't seen in 10 years. And those are the stories that make us feel like we're on the right track. So that's how we think about the lines. How about you?
Oh, well, honestly, it's funny.
The lines.
Yeah. For us, it's very similar. I mean, it's kind of a different version of the same thing. I mean, so for us, we always talk about, no matter, you think about brand and customer and all that, but with us, it starts with our people. And we have kind of organized as an entire company around making sure that we remove all amount of friction, and we just say at the window. So everybody's job is to make sure the experience at the window is the best that can possibly be. And that's the accountant's job, it's HR's job, it's our marketing team's job, it's my job, to make sure that we're always looking for the best possible experience at the window. And then you kind of work backwards from there on all the other things that go with it. But that relentless focus of that. And then we also, we have a pretty galvanizing kind of mission statement as a company, and that we're a fun-loving, mind-blowing company making a massive difference one cup at a time. And when you break that down as far as who we are, every employee in the company, now all 17,000 of them across 11 states, have that mission behind them, and it talks about the customer journey, it talks about drink quality, it talks about being mindful of the amount of philanthropy that we do in community. I mean, there's so many elements to our journey that helps make that amazing. And so the last thing that the company was really built on is that we're in the business of people, and our product really is love. And so as we think about service, and you think about great service, and just you can't have a great business and a great brand without great service. And we're still people, and people still connect with each other. And I think you and I are both in the people business, and we just happen to have great products that back it up. But if you don't stay true to that every single day, you start to lose your way. And we talk about scaling now, as you've scaled, we've scaled. Like, how do you do it in Houston, Texas, or for you, Miami, in the same way that we do it in Portland, Oregon? And it's and we talk about being big and being small at the same time. So how can we scale our brand, but make sure that our service stays just like the hometown that it was started in Grants Pass? So, combination of kind of all that, but it's all about our people.
I love that. I have a question for you, but I want to build on one thing you said first. So we talk a lot about our mission. We're creating happiness through moments of wonder, and those moments of wonder are all those things that I just described. I mean, if you've ever seen someone at Salt and Straw get to the front and they go, "Oh my God, I did not think that was going to taste good. I can't believe that." That's that moment. Or they'll bring their friends in and say, "They've never been in here before. Go." tell them what's going on here, and those are just those moments of connection and wonder. And the thing that I would say we have in common, I always say, who's the most important person in our company? Who are we all here today showing up to make sure is successful? And it's our general managers. It's crystal clear. If they are successful, the rest of the company will be successful. They are the company to, the 30 people who work at each of our shops. They are the company to the hundreds of customers that come in. So making everything about ensuring that they can be successful. I mean, we were trying to make a decision the other day. I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, gosh, now we're going to have them saying no about something. Do we really want that just because it's easier for us back here to manage it? No. No, we need to remove any kind of barriers that make it hard for them. So I wanted to emphasize that. I think that's really genius. And I think you were telling this story about how when you show up in new markets, the way, the preliminary marketing that really happens is through recruiting. Could you talk about that? Because that blew my mind. Yeah, so
we throw hiring parties in markets. And so we went into College Station, Texas, right? And Oregon brand going into Texas. And if you're building brands, don't go to Texas first, because it's really not a great place to build a brand unless you're from Texas. And so we were really nervous about how are we going to be perceived, what's it going to look like. College Station is closer to Portland, Maine than it is to Portland, Oregon. So we're really taking the leap to go back there. And so we do a ton of work before we go into a market with our brand. And so whether it's College Station or Stillwater, Oklahoma, or Salt Lake City like we did last year, we go in and seed the market. We seed it through digital activities. We seed it through PR activities. We seed it through some local givebacks where we'll connect with philanthropic arms to kind of show that we are going to be part of the community, not just a business that drops into a community, but we're actually going to go in and engage in community and be local leaders in a community and hopefully make a difference right away. But then we throw hiring parties. We don't actually post and do interviews. We actually do these big parties. Now, pre-COVID, these were a lot easier. COVID has certainly changed these a little bit. But in College Station, for example, we had 350 people apply for 50 jobs in College Station, and some of the best people we've ever seen of quality to come in and be part of that wanted to be what we were about. And so what you're doing at that point is you're creating a great atmosphere, but you're also seeing how are people with chemistry? How are people with communicating with each other socially? In a one-to-one setting, you get to learn maybe one behavior about somebody, but when you see people in a group setting and kind of how they operate, how they conduct themselves, you're learning a lot more about what we're going to be able to do for the customer and how they're going to be adaptable and how we do that. So chemistry is a big part of what we do. If you see inside of our stand and kind of what invokes the energy, really the energy comes from our people, and in many cases our people become good friends, and it's actually created some COVID issues because a lot of anybody who got sick, in a lot of cases they got sick because they were hanging out together than they were working in stand. So, But we have this very elaborate process that we use when we go into new markets and how we open, and then we open to, pretty big success, or at least we have been for the last couple of years.
Good job.
Thank you. All right, so question for you. So when you think about, okay, so let's talk about Salt and Straw in Disney. And you were a little nervous about that, if I remember, when you first went there.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that as a founder, leader, your little brand, kind of going into big, Disney experience, and how did you think about that, and then how did the customer respond?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's an interesting story because I think we had 5 stores when Disney approached us, 5 scoop shops, 3 in Portland and 2 in Los Angeles. And a gentleman was a customer of ours in Venice, and he turns out he runs all of the operations for downtown Disneyland. And so a spot was coming up for renewal, and before they renewed the spot, it was with Haagen-Dazs, he said, let's just do a search and see if maybe let's just see if anybody else might hit our radar that would be a good fit for this spot. And so they did. Being Disney, they did this thorough analysis, and he, in the back of his head, had it in his mind that he wanted to include Salt and Straw, but he didn't tell anyone. So we made the short list on our own, and we came in, and he had been talking us up. Little did we know, and we brought a whole team, and Disney had a huge group there. And we walked into this meeting. Little did we know, most of the people in the meeting were pretty frustrated because they thought we were wasting their time, that this little company would have the ability to take on this piece of work. So they came to the meeting begrudgingly. By the end of the meeting, it was supposed to be an hour. It went for 2.5 hours with all these people. And a week later, we found out we won the business. And in the meantime, this fellow is cheering for us the whole time, but trying not to show his bias. And our company, on the other side, was going through this huge kind of debate of whether or not it's even a good idea to open in Disneyland. First of all, we've been in these really highly curated streets, these neighborhoods. We do a lot of the same work where we get to know the local neighborhood chefs, nonprofits, community organizations. We create flavors in conjunction with these local neighborhoods, really deep local roots. And now we're going to go to Disneyland. It was why would we do that? We had a lot of conversations about, what does it do for us? What does it do for them? And at the end of the day, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if someone who's coming from another country or another part of our country gets to experience something local instead of this idea of mass sameness? And couldn't maybe we use the idea of growth to infuse a local artisan awareness and shine a light on what's local? And could we turn that on its head so growth doesn't have to mean mass sameness? And they really responded to that. Disney was like, yeah, we want that. And I remember we actually opened in October, because it was the Halloween menu that we have right now, which has candied crickets and mealworms on it. And we thought, it's from the first commercial bug farmer in the United States, who's in Oakland, California, and we partner with her to create this ice cream every year during Halloween. And so we thought, well, we probably can't sell all the flavors that we sell in other places because it's Disneyland. Are they really going to want that? They don't even know who we are, right? People are coming in off the street. They never even heard of Salt and Straw. And the folks at Disney were like, no, sell your main menu, because we brought this kind of Americana, more mainstream menu forth, and they said, no, keep your same menu. And guess what? That flavor sold more at Disney than any other stores in our portfolio, and it still does. And the site is that, so the president of Disneyland, his name is Josh, not Joth, asked me into his office for a private meeting about 3 months after the shop opened. And he said, you know what? We think that's the busiest ice cream shop in the world. He said, I just want to know what you guys are doing. I walk by and the people look so happy. And I said, well, remember right before we opened, do you remember how we were standing there and you kept asking me, like, is this what they're going to wear? Is this what? And he said, yeah, that was a big controversy within our organization. And the backstory is that when I was getting ready to sign the lease, Casey Milligan, who's been with our company since the beginning, kept coming to me and saying, Kim, before you sign the lease, are they going to be okay with the way our people look? Because they have tattoos and blue hair and piercings. And I was like, Casey, this is really hard to get a lease done with Disney. Can you quit bothering me about this? And she would not give up. And so finally I said, I'll ask. And they said, no, we're not okay with that. You can't, no, you can't. And I said, well, dang, that's when we can't open here. Because that's our people. That's a big part of who we are. You show up as your whole self when you come to work. It's a tenet of who we are. And it's what makes us successful. And they said, okay, you know. They just went round and round, and you know, we sent pictures from our stores of who our people were and what they looked like. It's in our lease. Wow. It's the first time Disney has ever agreed to it. And right after we opened, we got this huge influx of applications from all the other Disneyland people who wanted to come and work here. So anyway, I said to him, gosh, remember how you stood there and you kept asking, is this what they're going to wear? And he said, well, behind the scenes, people were freaking out, like that we were going to have people at Disneyland with tattoos, and this woman had ripped jeans, and like this lace was showing below her jeans. I can remember it perfectly. And he said, I go by and people look so happy. The people look so happy. And I mean, Disneyland, they're happy working there in general. But, you know, he said it's just brought a whole new way of looking. And now they allow that with many of their operators. They've expanded the way that which I think is incredible in the hospitality industry. Thank you. So I guess all this to say that we decided this would be our chance to bring a little bit of how Portland does business to Disneyland and to corporate, you know, America on a large scale. And it's working. They asked us to now open in Disney World. It's growing. And I think kind of that idea that you were talking about of really sticking to your values and making sure you put those forth. And thank God for Casey. So.
That's great. I'm glad I asked the question. That's awesome. Yeah. You know, I think that, you know, one of the things that just as you think about seeding brand, and I think one of the questions is about building brand and customer journey, and you know, with Dutch, it's when we go into a market, we actually go in with a 4 or 5 shop plan. Yeah. When we go into a market, so we just don't like drop one in and hope it will work. We actually do quite a bit of homework behind the scenes to make sure that we understand who our customer is, kind of what our adjacencies look like in the market. Obviously, we're dependent on drive-through, so what are the driving patterns in a market? And then we basically go in and lock up real estate for, you know, up to 5 locations, depending on size of market. So like in College Station, again, for example, we'll open our 4th location already. Our first one opened January 8th. Our 4th location is going in. All of them are larger than our company average in our system. And then we have number 5 opening up in the first quarter of next year. So we go in with a pretty heavy-duty market plan in the way that we've built things. We've got a digital plan behind it. We have a philanthropic plan behind it. We have a hiring plan behind it. And then with our new rewards program that we launched on February 1st, you know, we can take a lot of the digital data that we're gathering now as we build that, and then we're learning kind of what the market tiles look like and how we might need to address day parts or address second visits, or maybe we have an underperforming category within our shops, and we'll figure out like what new customer are we not attracting so we can get in and kind of build the tea business or the cold brew business or something like that. So really important as you go into new markets or as you're building your brand to have a plan. And to kind of the second story on that was when I was at Stumptown and we launched cold brew. And you know, cold brew was this product that really hadn't hit shelves. It was kind of new. There were a lot of coffee shops kind of doing a onesie twosie thing and didn't really know how to scale it. And but when we built cold brew, you know, we built it with a very specific channel plan. So, you know, when you think about the customer experience and the journey, you know, we're in the business a lot of customer service in the things that we do, but when you have more of a product that you're developing, you also have to think about that customer experience at the shelf or how they interact with it in whatever channel of business you're doing it with, and making sure you don't skip steps. I think it's really important to understand like who is your market at the beginning. I think when as we start going into new markets at Dutch, or when I was launching cold brew across the country, like we only went into specific places because we knew that if we connected to that customer first, then we could carry it to the next customer and the next customer and build it out. But if you go in and try to be all things to all people, what you do is you water down your service, you water down the experience, and ultimately nobody really knows what the brand stands for. And I think that's a good lesson to learn, no matter what product you're in or what category you're in. Be mindful of who's that customer and what are you trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you guys have been so good at that. I was wondering as you were talking, gosh, it's just so magical, everything that Dutch Brothers has done, and since you've joined, taking these huge leaps forward. I guess it's a two-part question. How do you hold on to the soul of what makes the company really special as you grow, and why are you growing? And how do you do that when you're a public company? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what a amazing story. I mean, Coffee Cart from Grants Pass, Oregon, builds the largest IPO in Oregon's history, and somebody said to me when we were in New York in September and said, you're achieving what was originally set out to be the American dream. Like, you start something from scratch, and the reason why the stock exchange was built was be able to take your company and offer it for the public to be a part of. And so what a cool story that was. And I think that, as we came in kind of with a new plan, when I got to Dutch Bros, there were 329 locations, and that was 3 years ago. We're now at 504 in that period of time. And so we talked a lot about like how do you scale, how do you preserve culture, how do you make sure your culture travels, how do you make sure you don't lose the essence? And we've talked a lot about it as we've gone public. I've told the team, like, let's not get drugged to the mean. Like, let's not get averaged out, because you spend, now that you're in the public eye, you get compared against everybody else all the time. And so all that really does is it averages you out to what everybody else does. So we have to stay true to who we are. I mean, we have to be okay with the blue hair and the tattoos, because that is important to us. It's important for us to allow people to be people. We have to understand that we're in the people business. Kim mentioned, our general manager is the most important employee. The three most important employees in our customer are our store manager, our regional operator, and then what we call our lead mob. And our lead mob are the people that are training, helping to build that chemistry, helping to carry the culture forward. I mean, those three positions are the only three positions that matter at Dutch Bros. And we have to make sure that we're putting the best people in those jobs that are carrying forward the mission, that are leading our culture drops. So when we launch a new stand, and I was in San Antonio a couple weeks ago, we have a culture drop where our local leaders are taking the 60 employees that we hire for that stand and doing kind of a culture drop, like, what's Dutch Bros about? Why was it built? Why does the family matter? Why do we give millions of dollars away to charity every year? But it's not a speech, it's an emotional draw that gets everybody engaged in who we are. So there's no manifesto or training book that says this is what you have to do. It is all about being people, and tying emotion and the art of all that into the science of operating a great business.
It's amazing. We have 6 minutes left.
Should
we take some questions?
Should we do questions? Is that what we're getting that for?
Are we allowed to offer
Can we have questions?
Oh, that was not planned.
Go, keep talking.
Okay,
I think that's
you
what
have a
that was.
question.
Okay.
Teresa from Travel Oregon, and we're
Yes.
trying to help Orla with this workforce issue. And hiring parties at 350 people, and we just keep hearing that they can't find anybody to hire. So, what are you doing differently other than letting people be who they are?
Yeah, our stores, especially in Portland, are fully staffed. We're not having we're not experiencing that thing. I'm sorry, would. And I'm grateful for that every single day. And I don't know if that will last because I think we're only at the start of this. And I don't know that being a great employer is enough, honestly. I mean, I think our industry is facing, some bigger challenges, and people are having to make changes in their lives, not only based on the industry or based on their personal relationship with their employer, but based on their lives, whether or not they can find childcare. My son was sent home due to a quarantine this week at school, and I had to stay home from work, and I could do that, but a lot of people can't. And so I just think we're facing a lot of challenges as a society that makes it hard for people to be at work, and I think we have to fix that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I do think that there are a lot of really bad employers out there. I think that the workplace may be the most boring place for a lot of people to have to go every day. So they're like, why would I do that? So I think it's on employers too to be making sure that we're staying up with trends and time and not saying this is, the employer used to kind of made the rules, right? Like, this is what you have to do, and if you're going to work for us, this is the way it's going to be. And I think the rules of engagement are changing before our eyes, and I think the younger employee has grown up in a very fast-paced world, and there's a lot of employers that I think have not adapted to that very well. And I think that the employers got to look themselves in the mirror and say, do I offer the right workplace for the employees that I want to be here? So I think that's something that we think about all the time.
That's a good question.
Yeah, why not? Let's go Q&A. This is more fun.
Yeah, this is fun.
I love this. I get to be like Chicano Oprah
Yeah.
here.
I know, you're like, yeah.
Stand on up, man.
Oprah.
This is Thomas. Yeah, Chicano Oprah. Thomas, how are you?
I'm doing good. I have a question. So this is a hypothetical, but say you got an edict from a higher power that said, or asked you to approach a business model, e-commerce, B2C, with both your existing brands. Do you think that model would support your brand? Yes or no? And what would you think would make you successful in doing that? Say just e-commerce model for both your brands.
Well, we have a really healthy growing e-commerce brand. So we ship ice cream all over the United States. And is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's up over 300%, since the pandemic started. So here we are in this situation where that consumer behavior is fast forwarded to, a point that we were hoping it would, years from now. And we're, you don't find Salt and Straw ice cream in the grocery store. We're not going into mass distribution in that way. We're instead leaning even more heavily into adding on channels where we control the customer relationship, the quality of our product. And there's just so many opportunities along that front now. I know you guys have off-premise and delivery.
Well, yeah, so we're really so we're kind of same deal. Like, you can only get our product through our stores. However, we have an e-commerce business that's also growing because one of the things that we're not really in is the very in coffee, the first experience is typically at home. And so we actually sell a pod and a ground coffee business for the home experience, where we say, get your first cup before you come to Dutch to get whatever it is and wherever you're going. We actually use it as a way to get first cup experience. When I got here, we were selling a lot of T-shirts and hats, and we were pretending like we were in the apparel business. And I'm like, guys, we are not in the apparel business, and the $4 million of stuff that we haven't sold that I had to write down proves that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And
sounded fun.
so it was, really cool. People love making T-shirts, but I think when you're in the e-commerce side of it, I think you want to simplify it as much as you can, and make sure it complements what else that you're doing. Like, have a reason for it, and I think there's lots of examples of that. But for us, that's how we accomplish that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think we have time for one more question. Anybody have a burning question? Well, here's a question for Kim. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, the reason for being is so important because we first launched with subscriptions, and you get 5 pints in your freezer. It's a lot of ice cream, and then we pivoted really to being still subscription, but we call it gifting and gathering. And I mean, that's a big business for us. Like, you can order pints to serve at or single serves to serve at your wedding. Really leaning heavily into the gifting business. So you're exactly right. Just getting really clear about who you're selling to and why. But yes.
Well, just as we kind of wrap up our time in these last 2 minutes, words of wisdom you all have gotten along your journeys?
You go first. I'm dying
First?
to hear yours.
Like, 'cause you,
My wisdom come from Joth, so this will be. I'm not kidding.
I think that, as you think about building business and building brands, and, we're here to talk about customer journey and experience and all that, it's and Kim knows this as well as anybody from me, but like, discipline matters, and be super clear about who you are, what it is that you want to accomplish, and then be the best in the world at that thing. You get a little bit of success, and what really tends to tear people apart is they start to try to do things that take them away from their original mission, and or what they originally set out to do. And I think some of it's the entrepreneur in people, some of it's just they get bored.
Fear.
But the discipline of execution, while it's stood the test of time, it matters. And no matter what size of business it is or what you're trying to do, just being the best in the world at that thing and execute it really well.
Someone told you that, or those are your own words of wisdom?
What's that?
Someone told you that, or those are your own words of wisdom?
I think I've learned that along the way and gathered that along the way, yeah.
Yeah, we always say keep the main thing the main thing. Like, come on, guys. So, and this maybe is a little bit more for the women in the room, for the ladies in the room. So I always like to say when someone asks me for advice or the best advice I've gotten, oftentimes the first thing that pops into my head is to not take advice. And I'm just reading this book called Untamed. It's a great book. And she talks a lot about this idea of the knowing that we all have inside of us, and how especially women have a hard time believing it. And I think as an entrepreneur, I had this idea to open an ice cream shop in 1996, and I finally did it in 2011. And I carried it around with me that whole time, perfecting it, not wanting. The first time I told this idea to someone, it was Sarah Massoni, who many of you know, and I sat across the table from her, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna. We were at the dockside, having breakfast, and I said, I think I'm gonna. I'm thinking about, this is no exaggeration. It took for me to say the words, I'm gonna open an ice cream shop. And she said, well, I'll help you. And, but, I carried it around with me, like, especially women, like, you wanna perfect this idea before you show anyone. And then my friends who are male entrepreneurs are like, I woke up with the best idea this morning. The world is so fucking lucky that I'm gonna share this with you in about 5 minutes. And I love men, and I'm all, but we got to catch a little bit of that, you guys, like you gals. You do know, and you've got it in there, and trust it and bring that forward. So